Well, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Mendocha, Dr. Speed Selling. This is Raging Verbalist number 72. Hard to believe, but 72 of these things are in the can. Let's get a little business taken care of before we dive into today's exciting episode. Number one is, hey, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell. All of that stuff could help me out. Please help us out. I mean, let's face it, there are lives on the line on this thing. Also, you can check it out on our Facebook page, Position to Win Book, and check that out. Now, as always, I'll just give you a quick overview of what we do here at Raging Verbalist, which is we talk about interesting topics, at least interesting to me. If you have an idea for a topic, you have a question you want me to answer, you want to put something out there, go to the Facebook page and put it out there, and that will be viewed and seen by the ever lovely, of course, my co-host, Sandra. Sandra, how are you doing this morning?
I am good. How are you?
Doing well. Excited that we're getting this one there. So this is, and then also go to positiontowinbook.com to go check out the books and all of that. So, Sandra, what is on tap today? Because I know this is a very special day for Raging Verbalist land.
That's right. So what inspired you to write Remote Work for a Better World?
So Remote Work for a Better World is actually my second book. And what happened, and by the way, this is the anniversary. So for any of you out there, that's why we're doing the show today. This is the anniversary of Remote Work for a Better World, plus a few days. You gotta, you have to let it all fit in. And what got me interested in doing this is that Gabe and I, co-author, co-conspirator, business partner, and I were in California. He flew in, and we were working on the book launch for Position to the Position to Win book. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes, and COVID was just rumbling along. And while we were together, and now, I know, the phrase, men, let's say men and women plan and God laughs kind of thing was going on. And we literally were sitting there watching the world starting to crumble around us. And we came up with this idea that, what we should do is that this whole remote work concept, or if you will, virtual business, which is what I had done for several clients, was going to be a big deal. So what inspired us is that actually we saw that the ability to actually get out there and be successful and productive was going to just fall right down the drain. And we knew a lot about this because, again, I've been doing essentially what some would call remote work since like 1987. And yes, we even had, there was life back then too. So what inspired us is that we needed to go out and get it done. And how do you get something like this done so rapidly? So went through the network of people that we know and said, who can help us write pieces of this, and assembled a team and put that together. And while the first book, most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes, took 30 years to put together. I mean, it took Gabe and I actually a couple years along with others to help get that across the finish line. But to get this second book, we knew we had very little time. So we said, how quickly can we get it done? We set a ridiculous goal to the team. In fact, we used Zoom. We used what we tell people how to use in remote work. So we are not, if you will, just as they say, drugstore cowboys hanging out at the soda fountain. And we got it done in 17 days. Would have been done a little bit sooner, and you'll find out what slowed it down to getting it out there. But literally, it took us 17 days to pull it together. Lots of long Zoom calls and pulling this together and yanking as hard as we could on getting this information and grind it up and put it through there and get it out. So I'm very proud of the effort that everybody put in. And I believe that we delivered great value then. And it's still very applicable today. I mean, we've had some people say, oh, things have changed. Wow, no kidding. Who expected the coronavirus to still be with us well, what are we, 14 months into this thing, 15 months, and we're still looking at, months and months and months before this thing gets even, significantly better. So that what inspired us was sheer absolute seeing that the world was going to be in a panic, and how do you help people do things better than they were going to do before. So that's what really got this whole thing going.
So, 17 days. How is that possible?
Well, what it means is that you have to have a couple things, and I'll lay it out. So anybody who's out there who wants to put together a book, somebody who's been procrastinating, not getting a book done, which is what you have to do is you have to say, okay, let's put together an outline, which we did. What's what some could call it a table of contents, but I wouldn't. I'd call it a topic list at that point in time. Once you get that topic list laid out, then what you do is you figure out who can do what, how can they do it, and more importantly is get everybody, and that, so we start with a topic list. We then go out and gather the team. So that's step number 2. Step 3 is you have to bring together a cohesive team. And how we did that is we actually got on a very long, probably 2.5 hour Zoom call, and we rolled through it and said, this is what we have to do. How, who's going to take what? We assigned pieces to it. We rearranged the order, which is why I would say it's a topic list, not a table of contents. And everybody, went off to their corners to work on it. Some of us collaborated with others. Some people worked in, their own speed. And then as we started bringing these pieces together, we actually had one of the members, Doug, who became a kind of a, or not kind of, he was the project manager. So he got to, if you will, be the person to make sure that he shooed everybody onto the bus and didn't leave any kid at the zoo on that field trip. And away we went. And what we did is we pulled that whole thing together. The other thing that we did is we realized that, and this is something that I learned from going to How to Write a Sitcom with Steve Kaplan, which is you have to do the read through. So what we did is we actually read through the entire the lump that we had together as a team. Now that was a 6.5, 7 hour Zoom call, recorded all of it, by the way. And so that happened. And what we discovered is holes, problems, fastest way to get it done. Couple things is that you need the right software tool chain, which we have, which is, we have Zoom, we have Otter, we are using Google Docs, and more importantly is that we have, you had a lot of people pulling on it at the same time. So that's how we actually got it done in 17 days. It actually was done a little sooner, but then we ran into a rock in the road. And of course, we'll be talking about that rock soon.
All right. So can you describe the process of getting it all pulled together?
So after you go through all of that, here's, they say that writing isn't writing, it's rewriting and editing. And so after we did that first big run through, we actually had to go through and polish and work on it. So the result that you see today, if you have a mind to go get it, which of course I would hope you would, is that it took really three full work run throughs on it. So the process of putting it together is that once you get that initial completion, then what you have to do is and by the way, this is the hard part. This is where great ideas for books go to die. And they go to die because what happens is that you have to actually go through and work through it and say, does this work? Does that work? How does this fit? How does that work? How do we put this piece in? How do we put that piece in? What elements are we missing? What haven't we looked at? What haven't we seen? By the way, we tried to get a hold of the people at Zoom. They were like way too busy and don't have an outreach point for us, even though we were going to talk a lot about Zoom. People have asked or criticized that why didn't we include other technology? Only had so many days to pull it together. And what we did is slowly but surely, we went through that first rough draft that we did the read through, and then each successive draft, and there were 3 of them, is that we got to a point of where you end up with what is something that you can work on and say, yeah, this is going to fit. This is going to be the right thing. We're going to make this work, and we're going to accept this. This is what we're going to accept, and this is what we're going to do. The mistake that I constantly see when I'm talking to people who say I want to write a book is that they say they want to write a book, but they don't want to put out that second and third rev effort to get it done. And I would highly recommend that you do that. And then as you pull it together, then there's like just a million and one details. And again, easy to get distracted. And the number one, and this is your big F word for today. I feel a little bit like Sesame Street, brought to you by the number 7 and the letter F. And the F word is focus. You have to be able to focus, focus, focus when you get to the end, because if you don't, you won't get it out there and get it done. Now, because of that focus, because of that effort, even though, here we had worked so hard, so long, finally got the book Most Businesses Fail finished, is that we knew that we had to go out and get the second one done. Which brings me to, if you want to go out there and find out more about this, if you really want to understand what kind of is happening in the world, go out there and get Most Businesses Fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. Position to Win. In there, you'll hear, you'll read, you'll see all of the things that I think are necessary in today's world. If you don't believe that this is an over communicated world, you are kidding yourself. I mean, we have more people than ever, like 7.3 billion people and counting, and they're out there multiplying even as we speak. We could just listen and we could probably hear that. But I'm just going to tell you that you need to be able to position yourself over the noise. That's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. You can get the physical copy. You can also get the physical copy by going to positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. Send in a request and I'll sign it and inscribe something as long as it's not too crazy. And away you go. Also, it's available in ebook on Kindle, Barnes & Noble Nook, and Apple iBooks. And then, of course, the subject that we're talking about today, which is we're talking about remote work for a better world. And if you do that, you can go find out. Now, that's only available on Amazon, and we'll talk about why that is in a second. But go out there and check that out. And then the other thing that I would highly recommend that you do, especially if you want to figure out how to write one of these things, is, and it's kind of like stepping out of that, is that you know what? If you got one in you, get it out of you before it's too late. That's all I can tell you. I mean, I waited a long time, but you want to get one out of you before it's too late. Now, having said that, let's get back to the Raging Verbalist and this happy anniversary. By the way, I'm very proud of the book. I'm proud of all the people who worked on the book. And I can tell you that there's a great deal of satisfaction by getting this done. And this is a very big positive. Okay, Sandra, where do we go from here?
All right. So you said the book is only available on Amazon Kindle. So why is that?
So we wanted to get the book out as quickly as we could, and we realized that if we just got our act together, we could go put it up on Kindle. And so we did that, and we actually had a great idea for a title. And the title originally wasn't, Remote Work for a Better World. In fact, what we did is we came up with a very good idea, which we felt, again, message to market match. If you've never heard that expression, burn it into your head, tattoo it on your arm, something like that. So what happened is that we decided we were just going to go with an electronic book, an ebook, Amazon being the big Mac daddy. And they said, hey, if you put it up here, we're going to help you promote it, can help you do this other stuff and we thought, again, we thought we're smart, clever people. We're, hey, we're marketers. We read and stuff all the time. So what we did is we said, here's the initial idea for the book. And we put it all together, worked really hard and got it there. And then kaboom, the original title of the book was Survive the Quarantine. And Survive the Quarantine, we felt matched up to exactly what was going on in the world. The world was going through shutdown. Now that we've been in it for a while, now that we've already had this kind of fatigue, we understand what a quarantine is. 14, 15 months ago, everybody, it was this kind of concept, you heard about it, you thought about it, but nobody actually had gone through one. And yeah, I mean, it's strange. I mean, I recently traveled through the West, went to Colorado, and wow, I actually got to go and sit in a restaurant. I'm still in, you know, land of confusion, California, where, that isn't really possible to go sit inside of a place. Everything is, still boarded up. So Survive the Quarantine was the original title. And we put it all together. We felt we were very clever. We laid this whole thing out and we sent it into Amazon, and we're like sitting there going, hot damn, are we smart? Are we good? And we make, because our original goal was to get it done in 2 weeks. That was our original goal. And then the shit storm hit. It's called, yeah. And what Amazon said is that, wait a second, this topic, what we have is not acceptable. This is too over the top. You're sitting there telling us that survive the quarantine. This is not a good thing to do. And so therefore, we're not going to let you do it. It doesn't meet our community standards. So we're a bunch of smart guys, smart men and women. There was a woman who did this also. Don't want to slight her. And what we did is we then started reading Amazon's methods and said, okay, we know what we're going to do. We're going to write them an email and submit it and say, here's why, and we're going to respond to every point they had. Again, denial. Uh, Gabe is such a persistent guy. He actually talked to somebody at Amazon. And what Amazon had decided was that the word quarantine, the fact that we're talking about COVID-19 and we are trying to put that in there, that of course this is salacious and not allowed. So we started doing a little research and I found something. And by the way, no, I don't get an affiliate link for this and I don't want to create a hostile environment. But we found a book which they actually had approved and is available and was on Kindle. And and we sent it to them. We said, are you kidding me? Here's the book that you did approve. Now, for those of you who may be squinting your eyes to read this, is that this book is a sex book. And it basically talks about if you have a dull, boring sex life, that this is how you can, become the world's, or, her best lover and make her scream, and 33 great positions. And there's a free bonus. Now, if this isn't over the top hyperbole, I mean, if this book does that, why the hell am I writing a book about remote work? Let's all just have a good time, get into the mosh pit. Away we go. So I got really pissed because we said it to them and said, hey, how is this? They said, well, there's freedom of speech. We have to do this. And, yeah, quarantine, COVID, disease bad, over the top about sex okay. So all I can tell you is that I was not happy with this. And in fact, it delayed us by 4 days, which is why it took us 17 days. We wanted to get it done in 2 weeks and prove we could do it. And this is something that we learned, which is Amazon has a very quirky way of approving whatever they approve. Now, saying the word quarantine, saying COVID, not so good. So I guess if we had used taken the headlines that this, or the title and headlines from this book, that we would have gone right over the top. And all I can tell you is that this book, by the way, is still out there. If you're so interested and inclined to read it, I don't see how they would ever live up to their promises, which is supposedly what the deal is. The point of it is that you're supposed to put things in. I'm talking about titles and not mislead people. And if this isn't misleading, I don't know what is. Now I have to admit, I have not read this. I'm not even going to ask Sandra, because once I showed it to her, I said, look, I know, you're compared to me, you're newlyweds and everything. I haven't even asked her about this, but I'm going to tell you, I think that this claim is going to be a little tough for them to live up to. And the crazy part about it is that, that book is approved, and yet ours was not. So we had to go out and get a brand new cover. We had to rework it. And of course, we came up with Remote Work for a Better World. So that's how that shitstorm came in, Sandra. And again, there you go, and we got to that crazy point. So that's how we got it out there and got it done.
All right, so besides all of that, what's happened since you've gotten the book out?
So here's the interesting part is that remote work for a better world ended up because we already had a PR agency in place and Tony has done a really cool job. And I ended up starting to get interviews and more interviews, and everybody was interested in the remote work. Again, Zoom was not it was a brand name. Zoom was what you do when little kids go zoom, or you zoom lens, but now Zoom is like, oh, I'm going to do a Zoom means you're going to do a video meeting. Uh, and all I can say is that I've done dozens of interviews on radio. I've done some television spots. I've done a bunch of podcasts and talked about the book. So a lot has happened since that book title came out. Surprisingly, lots of people connect with it. I'm surprised that more people haven't really taken some of the things and put them into practice. And all I can say is there's some really good stuff in there which I think would have solved many of the problems that I see. Example, as I was watching Fox Business, yeah, I watch Fox Business. I was watching Fox Business, and they had somebody who, pretty big name. In fact, I've met him at Freedom Fest. Well, I'll leave his name out because leave the guilty out. And his ability to do a Zoom meeting really, truly sucked. I mean, really sucked. And all I can tell you is that I'm watching this going, geez, and we'll call him Bobby. Geez, Bobby, if you had just read Remote Work for a Better World, you would not have experienced that. So if you want to have better Zoom meetings, more productive Zoom meetings, but actually going beyond Zoom, I mean, the fact that most people don't even think about, oh, I went on the meeting and I'm done. No, we use Zoom I use it every single day, actually, every week just to get the Raging Verbalist put together. We use Zoom, and it is an incredible platform. Is it well documented? Hell no. Is it quirky? Absolutely. The real question is do you utilize all the features? And usually people don't. So what's happened is actually this book, amazingly, has gotten lots of traction out in the marketplace because it is very topical, and people have asked me a lot of questions about it. And what I really find interesting is that our very first testimonial on Amazon was a woman in her 80s, and it was, the lockdown had happened. She couldn't see her grandchildren. She couldn't meet with her friends anymore. She was feeling very lonely. She got the book. She read the book. She got onto Zoom, and she organized a bunch of 70, 80-year-old women to get into their little coffee clutch, and they got to see each other and talk. And she said, listen, your book really helped me understand that. So if an 80-plus-year-old senior woman and knows she wasn't an IT expert can take the book and get that, to me, that was really a cool thing. And I was really happy that it did that. And hopefully other people have seen those same results. Probably the most surprising thing is to watch how many people do Zoom or do this type of thing so badly when in fact we have many tips, techniques, all the things that can help you do and have a better experience. So what's happened is that it's gotten pretty good traction, and we've gotten lots of good positive feedback.
Excellent. So with that, are there any plans of a sequel, updates, anything like that?
Well, as soon as it came out, we said, wow, we should go think about doing, updates as time goes on. And if I could have predicted the future, in some ways it's like, would I even be here today if I could have predicted the future? Because we went through a lot in the last year. The answer is yes. There's plans for a sequel. There's lots of things that have changed. Fundamentally, the book is solid, but there are new things, there are new ways to approach it, and I'll give just a couple of tips and things that you need to do. First and foremost is that you absolutely need to understand that if you're going to do a green screen, which if you've already experienced several green screens that we've done today, is that you want to make sure that you have all that set up ahead of time. I mean, I guess you can use the ones that come with Zoom of the, you know, the palm trees or the mountains or the universe or something. But if you're going to do this for business, and a lot of, mostly it is business, is that you should actually get a green screens to match that. Second thing that I think is absolutely critical is upgrade your audio. I happen to like a headset, and the reason for that is I have tried microphones, with the big gooseneck thing coming down. I used to do a radio show in Phoenix, had one of those, and that's fine if you have the room for it. But what I discovered is that I move too much. I mean, in Raging Verbalist, I'm pretty much fixed because, just got to block it in. But if you move a lot, I actually use a gaming headset, and I actually use wire. So just so you know. Now, is it as cool and hip? I mean, Cassandra's got that cool and hip look because, of course, she would not want to have some big, giant headset on. But for me, it's just I move my head too much, and I have to say that I actually talked to an audio expert, was explained to him what was happening, which is I would move my head away from the microphone because oftentimes you have to be right on top of the microphone for it to work the best way. And he said, well, how much do you move your head? And I said, well, I'm about halfway between Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles. If you want to go, watch some videos of those guys, because they would move their head a lot. And they said, yep, we're a headset like you're wearing, and I am the mic stand. So that works a lot better for me. So upgrade your audio. And the third thing is you have to tell everybody that's around you that you are actually doing a serious meeting, that that you shouldn't have people walking and Zoom bombing. Now, I know Zoom bombing is another expression that just came out. Zoom bombing, for those who don't know, is it used to be very easy that people would randomly type in and come into meetings and put in inappropriate stuff up there. But Zoom bombing is also where I was sitting there having a discussion with a $1 billion, they're doing $1 billion in sales company. I'm doing the pitch. The two guys who brought me in, one of the guys who brought me in had a virtual green screen, and he had his 12-year-old son who thought it would be very funny to flash in and out of the screen. Uh, Pissed me off because I can tell you that just doesn't look very professional. And, it just shows just a lack of discipline on that part. So those are some things that you can think about doing. And I can tell you that if you do those things, you will get better results. SQL, I think, is absolutely going to be needed. And I believe that the idea of going to a virtual world and moving forward to a more virtual system makes a lot of sense. If and I don't know what we kind of try to stay away from politics. For those who don't know, I'm a libertarian, so that means I can piss off people on all sides. But I can tell you this: I believe that going virtual makes a lot of sense. And if you're a person who's a greenie, you should love it because people aren't having to commute and drive and put all that pollution in the air. If you're a staunch, over on the conservative side, it means that you have freedom to do what you want to do. Whatever side you're on, I believe that virtual corporations and remote work is really going to be here to stay. The mistake that people will make is that there will be a push to go back to the old ways. And all I can say is the old ways are going to die, and they're going to die hard because there's just too many things you can do, especially with technology. So with that, I just want to thank Sandra for coming on to this very important happy anniversary for Remote Work for a Better World. I want to thank all of you who are watching, especially if you're watching on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube. Do what you possibly can. More importantly, get onto the Facebook page. It's free. Get on the Facebook page. Tell us how you have used your techniques for remote work. And frankly, remote work for a better world means a better world for you and for those you care about and the business that you're probably running. And with that, I'm John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling, and this has been Raging Verbalist number 72.